Now that's going. All right. You got that thing recording?
Yep.
Okay. This is both microphones working for podcast episode 4. Boom. Now we are actually good. Okay. So now I think we're actually ready. Everything looks a lot better now. So, do you have any questions before we get started?
Not really.
Okay. What is up? Welcome back to the B Street podcast. This is episode 4. We threw some Christmas lights and that kind of stuff, and I did that earlier today, and then realized that this episode is actually going to come out on December 27th. So it's kind of unfortunate.
After Christmas.
I'm usually one that on December 25th, like all Christmas stuff, just it goes out the window.
I bet you when this podcast comes out, all the trees are going to be outside on the road.
Yeah, they should. I mean, that's where they should be. So I'm a Christmas tree. It can go up after Thanksgiving. Definitely not before Thanksgiving. So if you are a Christmas tree before Thanksgiving, not good. After Thanksgiving, okay. Day after Christmas, tree's gone. But I thought it looked nice, so I'm breaking all my rules because sometimes rules are meant to be broken, and we're going to have a Christmas episode. So it's fun. So today we have Rebekah Bannister.
Hello.
How are you feeling?
Good.
Are you excited?
Yes.
Are you a little nervous?
Just a little bit.
Does it seem weird to have all your thoughts on recording that you'll one day be able to go and listen to later?
I hate hearing my voice, so this is going to be, I don't even think, this is going to be so weird, hearing myself and seeing myself.
Yeah, it seems like we've done a lot more recording stuff. I'm getting more comfortable with hearing my voice, but if you don't do it very much, then the first couple of times of hearing it is like, this is weird. Mm-hmm. It's kind of awkward. I don't like it. But it'll be fun either way. So before we get into your story and all that kind of stuff, tell everyone a little bit about yourself. Where do you go to school? What do you like to do for fun? Do you play any sports? What'd you do for Thanksgiving?
I'm Rebekah. I go to Greenville High. I'm a sophomore. I play lacrosse, and I'm doing club lacrosse. What I like to do, I like to hang out with my friends, spend time with my family. And for Thanksgiving, I went to Atlanta with my cousins, and we all sat around and ate Thanksgiving dinner. So it was fun.
What was the highlight of the Thanksgiving meal?
Well, we all went around. We said what we were thankful for, which was fun. But I would say the food, definitely.
Well, top favorite food, least favorite food.
Ooh, well, my sister and I, we fought over the apple cider, so definitely that because I won and I got the last bottle, which was nice. And then...
So it wasn't about enjoying it. It was about just... Yeah. You won the fight.
Yeah, I had to hide the bottle, and then I got it later.
Understandable.
Yeah. And then probably the least favorite, I'm not a turkey kind of girl. I like a honey baked ham. So, I don't know. I feel like that definitely raises a bunch of, that just makes people mad. But I like honey baked ham better.
I mean, I guess it's acceptable, but I definitely like turkey, so that's sad. We'll let it go, though. It'll be okay. So I want to get into your story, but just kind of as a reminder for everyone, one of the things that is so awesome about being able to sit here and do this is, it's like we've said in episodes past that one of the things that catches people a lot in sharing their story is that it feels like it has to be set up just right. You have to have the right things to say. You have to have everything prepared and planned, and you've got to have some kind of crazy dramatic story or something that is going to catch the attention of people. And so the idea here is that we get to break down your story, bring it in a conversational light, and really allow us all to kind of think of our stories as not this one-time thing where you get 5 minutes in front of a crowd, but it's something that is continuing on. We look back and we see where God has worked, and then we look and we see how God is working now, and we look forward to how God is going to work in the future. And so just something to keep in mind as you're listening and as we get to talk, that it's really to just remove the fear of sharing our story. So with that being said, Rebekah, where would you say that your story with Jesus begins?
Well, I've always grown up in the church. I was baptized here. I did confirmation. I go to youth. I go to church every Sunday. Both of my parents are on the prayer team. I've done basketball since I can remember. So I've been here a long time.
So you've always been in the church. Are there any conversations that stick out, or anything in particular that I remember really kind of thinking about faith at this point?
Well, I remember my 6th grade when we were at confirmation, our parents, we were a little retreat that we do, that confirmation does every year. My mom wrote me a letter, and she talked about how when she had cancer, that the doctors told her that she was never going to have a child, and how she said that I was a miracle because God gave me her. So that was kind of one of my first things, like, oh, wow, like, God had a plan for her and gave her me, which was nice.
And probably makes you feel a little special.
Mm-hmm,
yeah, for sure. So one of the things that I've thought about as I've asked this question a couple of times is, so far each person has said that they've grown up in the church, they've always been around it, and so it's kind of hard to pinpoint a particular moment when maybe their faith really began. So like in this case, thinking back to that story, that's one of the first times that you've heard about faith, or you really started thinking about it. But do you have maybe a date or a time when you say, this is when my walk with Christ began? This is when I decided that Jesus was my Savior.
I mean, for me, it's always been, my faith has grown over the years. When I was little, like, it's just gotten more and more the more time I've talked about it and the more activities I've done. But I mean, really a point where I've said, like, okay, I need to not just go to church and listen and I'm not actually doing anything about it, would probably be one of my years at Walk with Christ. And I remember Abby Morgan was talking, and she was talking about how you don't have to have this big story, because all of the speakers there, they got struck by lightning, something big has happened, like their brother died or their mother died, or they were doing drugs, and they like other things. And she was just talking about how you don't need that big like aha moment where you have to say, like, this is the point, like God is there for me, like but she said that you don't have to have that, you can start now. You don't have to wait for that big moment and think it's coming. So that was kind of when I was like, oh, I haven't had this big moment, so I should stop waiting around, and devote my life to God, which was nice.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. And that's kind of what we were just saying a second ago about why this is important, right? Because so many people get caught up on not having that moment. Like, hopefully you're not ever going to be struck by lightning, right? And that might be a big deal for someone. And that's not to make any less of that. It's just, that's not you, and that part of the story might stick out for someone else, and that's awesome, and we hope it does. But for you, it's like, well, I don't really want to be struck by lightning, so I'm not like wishing for that, or a car accident, or whatever it is. And so being able to understand that Jesus works in all kinds of ways. And so I think that's cool that you can look back and kind of pinpoint that moment. So can you tell us about a time when you have experienced the presence of God? So like a time where you remember, when we talk about the presence of God, this is it.
Well, the one thing that I can remember is I was on my way to school and my carpool was coming to pick me up, and I had I had like 3 tests that day. There was some friend drama going on, someone was ignoring me or something. I don't really remember what it was, but it was a bunch of drama, and I was stressed out with school, having friend troubles, and I just remember that I came downstairs and I was, thinking about it. I was getting all worked up, and I had like tears in my eyes, and I was sitting by the door to wait for my carpool, and my parents are like, "Look, let's just pray for you." And we kind of do this thing in our house where we have like a sandwich. Like if someone's upset, we'll make like a sandwich and like hug them. So I was in the middle, and it was my mom and my dad, and they, kind of hugged around me and they prayed for me. And like instantly, like right then, it was just like I was like no more stress, tears gone. And I was just like, I just felt this peace. So it was really cool.
That is really cool. So do you think it's because you intentionally, or I guess y'all intentionally took the time to just kind of pray and give that worry up to God?
Definitely.
So how do you think you recreate that?
What do you mean, like now?
Well, I mean, I think, we say a lot, at least you hear it in Christian lingo a lot, right? Like, go be in the presence of God. Go be in the presence of God. We're going to live in the presence of God. And if we say that, then it has to be something that we can just find, or somewhere we can go. And it has to be something that's recreatable. So what is it about that situation that made you feel like it was the presence of God? And is that somewhere that you think you have been able to go to whenever?
I definitely think the prayer thing, and especially with how my parents were hugging me and I felt comfortable, I think that's good. I think that for me, the biggest thing is praying, especially when it's like completely quiet and, no one's around and you just are by yourself. I mean, I think that's good. It's another thing is, for me, like how in that situation I was stressed and I was worried. So I think that recreating that was to be not just in times where I'm worried or I'm stressed, but all the time, is to try and feel that peace, and not just when I'm freaked out or
yeah. Well, that's huge, because we're not going to be stressed all the time, and we're not going to be worried all the time. And so do we need the presence of God then, or is it only for stress and worry times? Like, no, it's for all the time. So to be able to recognize that, I think is really cool. So do you have a time where you've had a doubt or doubts about God, and that being very intentional, that, it's, if it is now, or if it's something that you've been through or you've come to the other side of, or you're not sure about, that doubts aren't a bad thing. It's something that we all go through. So is there a time that comes to mind for you specifically?
I definitely think that like people, when they say, "Oh, I'm having doubts," everyone thinks it's a horrible and bad thing and like you don't believe in God. But I mean, I think that it's normal for most people, like especially teenagers my age, and especially now. I think the hardest time is with COVID, and I think being away from people and not being on a routine, and not having sports, or not having a good, like a spirit week, or having to not come to church or do specific activities. I mean, I think it's hard because you wonder, like, why is God doing this? If God, has a plan, like, you have to find a way to trust him. But I mean, it's hard when, what you want is not happening.
So what have you been learning in that?
I've learned to trust him. I mean, it's been very difficult, but I mean, I think having a constant reminding myself like don't be worried, trust God, or you know, it's in his hands. Like it's saying that is definitely helped me a lot.
Just kind of constantly reminding yourself like,
Yeah.
I know I don't get it, but there's got to be something, so I'm just going to stay the course, I guess, and whether that means staying in prayer or reading scripture or something. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's something that is it's tough to have an answer to right off. You can look back and you could probably find examples of, well, yeah, maybe in this moment I felt extremely lonely, and I told myself, well, God's got to be doing something, and so because of that, I'm going to choose this moment to praise. And even stuff like that strengthens your relationship, but it's kind of hard to pinpoint those moments from different times. So one of the things that we like to talk about and find out about is your favorite Bible verse right now. So what is your favorite Bible verse right now, and what have you learned about it? Can you give us some context and that
why
kind of stuff?
It's my favorite Bible verse?
Well, first, what is it?
Oh, okay. My favorite Bible verse is Joshua 1:9.
What is that?
And it says, hold on. It says, I hereby command you, be strong and courageous. Do not be frightened or dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go.
So why is that your favorite Bible verse? And yeah, tell us about it.
So when I used to, so this is when I was younger. I clearly don't get in trouble a lot now, but
yes, you do. It's fine.
But when I was younger, I used to get in trouble, and my parents, as a punishment, make me memorize Bible verses. And so this Bible verse was the first Bible verse I ever had to memorize. And what I would do is I would put them on sticky notes. And I still have the sticky notes today, but I would put them on my door. So every time I was going, I would have to repeat them. So every time I was coming downstairs, I'd read over them. And I'd be like, okay, Joshua 1:9. And I'd read it. And then I have to come downstairs and I have to say the Bible verse. And so that was my first one. So that's the one I've always kind of remembered.
So did you have to have it memorized by a certain time?
Well,
did they give you a length of time?
I had to memorize 5 Bible verses, and I had to memorize 1 each day, and then on the 5th day, I had to repeat all 5. So, if this was my first one, I memorized the second one the next day, and then I come downstairs and I say the first one and the second one, and then, continuing on to the last 5 days where I'd have to repeat all 5.
So if you get to the last day and you have to repeat all 5 and you miss one, does that, extend the punishment and you get a whole new set of Bible verses?
Well, you see, I never missed them. So
you don't know?
I don't know. But, yeah. But the Bible verses I had to memorize had to do with, so if I lied, I'd have to memorize Bible verses about lying. And then, I don't remember what this one was, but I think it had to do with, trusting someone or something. I have no idea.
But either way, it was the first one, and it's kind of stuck with you ever since. So what have you learned about it? Who wrote it? Why is it there? And how does it practically apply to your life, and what can we learn from it?
So this is what God said to Joshua, and this is before they're going into the promised land. And how this applies to me is I kind of have trouble sometimes thinking I get scared. I'm like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing, or oh, I'm really dumb, I'm going to do bad on this test, or oh, I don't know how to act in this social situation, or I'm too scared to go here or there. And I just have to think to myself, like the Bible verse says, is to be strong and courageous and remember that God is with you. So, I mean, I think learning that, he's there and he's, giving you confidence and allowing you to be yourself is, a good thing.
Yeah, I think that definitely goes along with it. I know I was looking at it today a little bit because obviously I knew we were going to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that stuck out to me is that he mentions Moses in there. And, so getting ready to go into the promised land, do you know what that meant for them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, what were they getting ready to do? Like, they weren't just going in. They were going in for something.
Yeah. Weren't they going in to, like, get ready to fight?
Yeah, like they were going in getting ready to battle, and so now Joshua is all of a sudden the leader, and God has said, I'm getting ready to send you here, and you're going into battle. And, he reiterates it to Joshua a couple of times, be strong and courageous, be strong and courageous, because the thing that stuck out to me is that this is something that God called him to. And so whether Joshua agrees to it or not, the Israelites are going in. And so Joshua can either choose to be a part of God's plan, or God is going to pick someone else. And, I think listening to you talk about being strong and courageous and the different situations that God puts you in life, it's like whether it is going to the test or some situation with your friends or whatever it may be, God has a plan for your life, and he's going to act out that plan whether you decide to be a part of it or not. And so in those times where you're feeling fearful or scared, it's like, if I miss this opportunity, I miss something that God has put in place. And so why not be strong and courageous? Does that does that make sense? Does that line up with you? Do you agree with that?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that.
Cool. Yeah, I thought that was really cool. And, I think you hit that pretty on the head. So good job.
Thanks.
So how would you say that your faith has changed within the last year?
My faith has changed definitely through COVID, like a lot, because, when we went into quarantine and, having all that extra time, it was kind of like, how people lay off stuff, but like now it's kind of just like, oh, I read my devotional, I pray, I do all this stuff, but like I have a relationship with God, but like, when we were in quarantine, by ourselves, like we could actually like have conversations with like our family, or like really dive deep into devotionals, or like really have that one-on-one time with God. So, I mean, I think that's definitely impacted me for the long run, that time to, be alone with him and, really actually try and learn from his word.
Yeah, it seems like it's really easy whenever we're busy to say, oh yeah, I'm going to be intentional with my quiet time. And then all of a sudden everyone's supposed to quarantine and there's nothing to do. And it's like, well, I'm going to be intentional with my quiet time. Well, when? You don't have anything else to do. Well, I guess now.
Yeah.
So it's cool that you've been capitalizing on that. Do you think, is there anything in particular that you've been going through? Like, is there a book, or have you been listening to any podcast or something?
I have this devotional book for teens that's on my bedside table that I read, and it talks about different situations, and it gives you Bible verses, and it says like, this is what God says to do in this situation. So it's kind of cool. It has like it's like a day thing, so it has a new thing every day, which is
really cool.
Yeah.
So kind of maybe a follow-up question to that, and maybe it's not a follow-up at all, but is there a particular moment that you would say is a pivotal moment in your relationship with Christ? And so, the thing that I like to explain is that I see pivotal and an aha moment, because we hear that come up a lot, is the aha moment, like what we were talking about earlier. But a pivotal moment not necessarily being a big deal. It's this huge tragic event, but it's just something that stuck out that you noticed. It was like, huh, that's interesting. And I follow this way now, or I learned this about God. So pivotal moment.
Okay, so my friend, she just moved here, and I remember we were in the car, and she was talking about these two people, and she was talking about these two people, and we were saying pros and cons, and she was, well, not cons, pros, all pros.
But there were cons.
Yeah. Okay. And she was like, you know what? She was like, I'm going to leave my decision to God. And I kind of looked over at her and I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, I have never heard any of my friends say that. Like, she just said, oh, I'm just going to leave it to God so normally. And I kind of thought, oh my gosh, like, I don't do that. So it was kind of cool to see, like, a different perspective, like saying, more day-to-day things, like how people at church are like, God is in this situation, God is blah, blah, blah here. But, I mean, I think that, using that and what she said, like, in every day, like, if you're stressed, I'm going to trust God, or, like, just talking to people about, God on a normal basis. I mean, I think that was kind of just like, I need to do that more.
Kind of taking your relationship with Christ, like, outside of Sunday.
Mm-hmm. Like, every day. Do
you think you've found yourself doing that at all since that situation?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, at least I try to.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's a thought that's there, and so you're maybe looking for it a little bit more, or, you're trying to play it out on a day-to-day basis. Awesome. Really cool. So then a couple of the last questions, but up to this point, what do you think is the most difficult lesson that you've had to learn about your faith?
Most difficult lesson? I have no idea.
Maybe it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, I'm just perfect. Most difficult lesson, I would probably say, is the whole, like, day-to-day basis thing.
Okay.
And I think a big one is not, like, reaching or, like, trying to pray, like, doing stuff every day, only praying when you need him, but more of, like, in good times, thank God, not just in bad times, ask God to, help you, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, like not when you're stressed, pray to him, pray to pass the test, like, when you're with your family or you're on vacation, like, thanking him, like a everyday thing, kind of. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that makes perfect sense. I love it. So who would you say are some of your biggest role models? They don't have to be a celebrity. They can be people in your everyday life. And have you ever thought about God's calling in your life?
Well, I definitely think both of my sisters are two of my role models. I love them dearly. Winnebeth is amazing. She kind of does everything for me. She's really sweet. And when I'm driving, she always will come in the car with me. And Adair's kind of like a mom. She'll give me life lessons because she's gone through high school and she's in college. And she's just hilarious. And Winnebeth is a queen bee, and it's so funny. But someone more of a role model, like, in faith, I would definitely say is, I know it's so strange, but it's Rachel Shaughnessy. She's in college. She goes to Clemson, and I remember this is when I had my permit, and I was driving with my mom, and we told her we would drop her off at her friend's house because I think we were dropping off something at the Shaughnessy's house. But she was talking about how her friends and her had done this Bible study all through high school and college, and how they text each other every day about their faith, like, keep each other on track about their faith and really, dive deep into conversation. And I kind of thought to myself, oh my gosh, I want to do that. I know I want to be like her, and how she just talks about it normally, how my friend did. It's so normal to her. And I mean, I think that's good to, have that relationship with those people, like, really do that. I mean, I really want that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Cool. And then have you ever given any thought to God's calling in your life? Like, where you might be going?
Not really. I mean, I've always thought about it. All my family pretty much knows, like, Winnebeth knows she wants to be a dermatologist, and Adair knows she's probably going to be a lawyer. So, I mean, I haven't really thought about it. I think that's something I think about, like, every day, but I have a hard time deciding, so I still have no idea.
That's okay. There's
Yeah.
still plenty of time.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Well, I really appreciate you sharing all of that with
course.
everyone, the entire world. So hopefully you have enjoyed listening and hopefully learning something from Rebekah's story. Is there anything else that you want to share with the crowd, the group?
Not really.
No?
Not that I know of.
What are you off to next?
Basketball.
Church basketball.
Church basketball.
It's time, ladies and gentlemen, for church basketball. One of the biggest things here at Buncombe Street, and we love it.
Yep. Our team is, we're pretty serious. Let's just say that.
Well, all of our teams are very serious. I mean, it's a big deal. We've got a big name to stand by.
Deal.
So
yeah.
Don't want to let anyone down. Well, if you see Rebekah around church, say hey, talk to her. If you have questions for her, ask her questions. I'm sure that she would love to talk.
Of course. I love to talk.
She would definitely love to talk, and she would probably also love to talk to you. So say something to her. But until that time or until next time, it's been great. I've enjoyed it. Thanks again for taking some time and sitting and chatting. And we'll see you next time.